Hello. Man. Maybe I look a little rough, but you know what? So did your mom last night. What? Talk about my mama. So, day 11. I don't know exactly what's going to happen today. You might have noticed I was typing on something a little bit different than I usually type on. Why is that? Well, sometimes you form comforts, and I've always been on my computer when it comes to doing the reports. I am writing another report of hows and whys. What I'm working on right now is how the beings came into existence in this world, because I'm working on a level here. So this book is partly therapeutic for just me, and partly a fucking mythology, a story for someone to read. Now, the part that's therapeutic for me is, as I'm rolling this out, I'm kind of looking at it and starting to realize things. My question was, how did my hero come to be? How was he born into this world? Because I'm like, it can't be as simple as like, yeah, he had two parents, they had sex, and he was born. Like, yeah, okay, but like, how did the essence of him become who he is? And how did he become the chosen one, right? And I thought about it and thought about it. I'm like, well, the idea of the Forgotten King being this otherworldly being that made certain beings on this world that we have here that I'm working in. I made up my own world. It's called Yuandra. There's a bunch of people, a bunch of countries, a bunch of bullshit, you know. Think fucking Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, and fucking Skyrim and all that shit. You know what I mean? Like, it's a made-up world with a bunch of people on it. Well, I have a being that's considered a god. That god is merely a metaphor for me. That God is looking for his hero to save him. I am supposed to be this God in a metaphor because I'm looking for these characters, because these characters are facets of my own real life, and I'm looking to unravel how I became what I became so that I can be free from what torments my soul. And I'm using all these beings. But why is Eris the most important one? Well, he was the first person that I needed to use as a conduit into this world. I sat down and made up a world. I thought, well, I gotta have a character that I focus on. So he becomes the focal point of how I traverse through this realm. Well, in order to do that, I had to unravel his life a little bit. Eris lived from year born to year 17 normally, and then all of a sudden I come in the picture and I destroy everything around him because I need him to slowly, in that breaking down of his normal life, I need him to turn into the traumas that I've experienced in metaphorical and allegorical like purposes. I didn't obviously face all the things that he truly faced, but they're just metaphors for the experience of growth into adulthood. So I had to take away from him his life, and I had to put in my life. And so I'm needing that moment for him to unravel and go through the traumas to a certain point, so then when he finally is in that point, like I'm in book 2, and I'm saying, this is the Council of Elrond scene, now you're learn why everything's happening as it is. Well, he's going to be sat in front of, people that are going to have to unravel his mind in a sense, because he has to be the focal point. He has to be the conduit for me to pass into, so that I may, in full spectrum, explore this world. This world is, the reason I have to do that is because in this place is the embodiment of the idea of escapism. And I'm not saying it's an epidemic, but I will say that escapism is becoming really bad in this world. I mean, just video games alone. Like, the fact that people play video games all the time is frightening. Because it's just like, you already are here, but you're choosing to so separate yourself that you want to live in some other fake world. Well, that's what I'm doing, right? I made my own instead of having to have someone else make it first so I can jump in. The idea is to explore the good and the bad of escapism and why we do it and the reason that we do it. We all have different reasons, right? We've all had different lives, so I can't, like, I'm trying to think of how I say this. In reading this, I'm not like going to be like, and by the way, this is the answer, you can have it too. It's like, this is just my personal experience through it, the only way I know how to do it. And apparently that's writing a novel. But I think the story is good enough that I think it can possibly do something for somebody. You know, I feel divinely like I'm supposed to be doing this, so I'm doing it. I couldn't tell you any more about it because I hate to get egotistical about it. But I need something to talk about today, so let's talk about this, I guess. I hate it. I really do. I despise, like, and think, like, man, I just, like, there's a part of me that's just like, stop it. But I have to. A lot of this channel, these videos, this book in its own right, are ways to force me to be a better person and to heal and to forgive and to let go of pain, right? Because I'm being faced with it. Like, if I want to get something done, as I always say, I have to record myself talking about it in order to actually do it, because if I'll just sit there and do nothing. And I'm like, okay, you're not going to do anything? Let's start talking. You got no one to talk to yourself. And then I started recording it. And that's how this channel was birthed. The book originally started as just something, I don't know, it started so humbly as it should, right? It's like, it was escapism. I wanted to get away. I didn't know in that time I wanted to. I didn't say, like, well, we need to escape from reality. Let us create this world. No, it just happened. I wanted to do this. Something drove me to do this. Something could have just been a part of myself. I don't know. But I was driven to start making this world. And I did. And I kept trying, and I kept trying. And along the way, I would come to barriers. And that's when I would rely on other people to help me get through these barriers. And then eventually certain people would actually join the writing of this book in their own way. I think that doing all of this has definitely started to unravel parts of who I am. And why I do what I do. I mean, it's not been easy to try to do all this. Because, I mean, I think the easy part is getting out feelings and, like, exploring how I feel about things. That's not the fucking hard part. The hard part is taking that, but making it a cohesive story inside of a world that works. That's the hard fucking part. You know, like, I should have, like, you know, it would have been smarter if I just wrote, like, a J.D. Salinger Catching the Rye kind of shit. Where it takes place in this real world. It's kind of me, and then it's somewhere that I grew up and I can go in. I should have done that. That would have been so much easier. I could have published it and it would have been way, way easier. But for whatever reason, I chose to go about this. Like, what if we did a therapeutic writing session / autobiography, or however you describe that, or biography, I don't remember the difference, inside of a fantasy world with a hell of a lot of mythology and allegories in it, so that people can unravel it quietly to themselves. What if we just went that out? You know, like, I don't know why I chose the hard way about this, but it has definitely been an experience where it's like, it forces you to look so deep within yourself. When you make up characters, first of all, why the fuck do you make up characters is beyond me. You have to have portals. You have to have conduits through which you yourself have to explore the world. And each one has to manifest into some sort of either lived experience you've had or some sort of like archetype of a human thing, right? Like the mentor, the anti-hero, the fucking, that kind of stuff. You have to kind of manifest these things, because through that is through the story. And so you can, through that element, really explore some sort of deep psychological thing that you've experienced, and you can begin to put it inside of what is deemed a story. I don't know if this is what every other story is in the world. I really don't. I'm going to go out to venture and say in some ways it has to be, but I think one of the reasons that I continuously record and I continuously keep talking about the book in as vague terms as I can, or what the elements are that I'm exploring in the book, is because I think that for some reason I feel like I have to show the other side of this. All people know is stories. And we get them a lot more nowadays from video games, sadly. But all we know now is stories. And those stories kind of become mythologies to help guide people, or avoid the trappings, or, explore the depths of the human soul, or explore the darkness. And a lot of our modern stories are more negative than they are positive. They're self-loathing. But for whatever fucking reason, I feel like saying, let me show you what goes into making stories. Let me show you the depth at which each word actually has some sort of meaning that's even greater than yourself. Because it's like, how long have people been studying Shakespeare? How long have people been studying the Iliad and the Odyssey? Well, why not, if I'm going to write a book, why not give as much as I can to aid in that before I pass away? You know what I mean? Why not give as much as I possibly can to the unraveling of how the story became the story and what's really going on? What does he really mean in this section? The part there where he talked about this, what did he truly mean? And what do you think the author was trying to say? That kind of fucking bullshit. I just want to get it out of the way and say, here's what I was thinking. Here's what was going on. This is what it was. And if I live long enough to, after I finally publish these books at this pace, probably in a few years, if I live long enough for them to be published, statistically I will, I'm trying to say, if I live long enough to and then people actually read them enough to actually want to talk to me about them, I'm excited for the fact of going more into the actual stuff. So I'm kind of vague now, and I'm giving a little bit here and a little bit there, trying to ruin things. I don't give away any major plot elements that you can't see coming, and character motivations. I won't do that, but once people are actually reading it, I'm more than happy to go into depth of scene by fucking scene. Let me tell you exactly what's going on here and why it's happening, and that obviously is what I will do at that point. So there's more information about it, because after I'm gone, it's interesting how people start to interpret stories. They interpret a story that was written thousands of years ago with their modern mindset. And that can be a disastrous result in some way, shape, or form. Why do you think everyone thinks stories are racist now? Out of nowhere. It's just because they have their modern rhetoric, they were forced to believe, and now they're forcing on things that were long before they were born. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff, it can be iffy, Context is the most important thing with anything. You can never read anything. I'm trying to read a book written in the 1770s about the history of Ireland. The context is well gone. And even he's talking about from his time, thousands of years before that. in the beginning of the book. So it's like context is difficult. It's difficult. Motivations and like, oh, everyone knows this. You know how many times you read like in a classical source about, you know, like, what's his name? Herodotus and Diodorus Siculus and all those other ones. You know how many times it's just like, we don't need to labor on that thought anymore. It's been said. And it's just like, yeah, 90% of the histories written are gone from that era. And they're like the only few ones remaining. So like all these little tiny historical things have disappeared. So it's like, you got to have this context. People have a hard time with that. They really do. But anyway, going back to it. The idea of how the conduits work within this story of mine, and them being sort of a, first of all, the mirror to myself, but secondly, the glasses that I use so that I may see this world. So if I made a world and I can't see through it, I have to in order to peer into this world and beyond the fucking mists of the clouds inside the sphere, I need to use my conduits that I created on there, which are the characters, so that I may go down and live through it. It's kind of the same understandings of what some people believe God is. You know, we're all subjective beings that he lives through in order to take on the vast beauty of this world. So I'm saying, what if what I'm doing is the same thing God's doing? I'm not claiming that's what it is, but I'm just throwing that out to myself more. What if this world God made the same way I did? He made it to escape from something. And in that escaping, he needed this world to save him from what he's escaping from. And in that, he's able to finally pull away from the world, which is why he's quiet now, and to finally face the things that he's been facing. Using it as a therapeutic element. Again, I'm not like going to say like, and that's it, and I'm going to publish this book under that. I'm just exploring that idea. Like, why the fuck not, you know? It's something a little bit different, like sort of the same old shit. Why not try to think of something differently? If I'm capable of doing this, if my characters were alive, if they were living, wouldn't you think that they would think I'm their creator? Like, you know what I mean? Like, he made us. He made all this. Like, if they had their own consciousness, I'm pretty sure they would think that. And then if they found out, like, by the way, he has certain people that somehow he's inside of them in the world looking out at it. But he only chooses certain ones. And the ones that he chooses mirror some aspect of himself. So these little beings must be aspects of God. Like, you know, they would think that shit if they were real. So my thinking is, like, well, if I'm doing this and that's happening, who's to say that this isn't something of that, at least close to that idea? I don't know. I'm not going to put my neck out on that one and say, like, that's what it is. I'm going to go on talk shows and talk about this. Like, no, it's just a thought experiment, you know? But someone's got to fucking do it. Sitting here stagnating on shit. Like, why not? Why the fuck not? It's just, you know, to me it just makes too much sense. I guess you'd have to have had my lived experience, as they say nowadays. You'd have to have had it to, like, oh, I see what you're talking about, you know, why you would think that, just because of everything that triggered and fell into place as it does. All life seems to be some grand mirror. And every time I look at it, because, you know, me being the person that I am, I watch people. I watch life. I sit and just stare. And I'm watching all this stuff happen, and then I start doing my own little thing, and I'm like, well, this mirrors it. Obvious reasons why I would mirror it, because, you know, I'm a human being as well. But when you get to the meta sense of it and you start to see into this, what would be considered like this realm of the gods shit, and you think, well, there's some sort of connection here. If I have my hero walk into his mind, because that is the portal into what is called Crossroads, which is the point from which the astral realm exists. And in that astral realm are all the gods trapped because of a war they had. And here's the crossroads, and here's the waking life, like where Eris and normal people live. If the hero goes into this point and learns how to become this, let's pretend, Jedi, to access this astral realm, in order to confront all these gods and finally stop this war from happening, who's to say that that's not something that could be really happening? Who's to say that those gods aren't metaphors for these fighting spirits inside of your head? The fighting, all these different personalities that you have, emotions, that have taken on some sort of manifestation into an emotion, and from that emotion they pass through and act in. These gods have walked away long ago, in my book. They've walked away long ago and fought themselves into almost fucking exile. And the only way they can gain strength back into the realm of life is through these spirits, emotions, that pass through all living beings. At least the ones they made, because there's multiple gods that created multiple groups of people. I gave a lot away on accident. What I will say, though, I just can't help but see the connection. It's not... I don't know, man, like... Who am I to even say what is and what isn't? And from which the beings live that don't really exist. I mean, we could argue if they do or don't. Like, if you think of it and it manifests, it becomes real. Is this realm real somewhere? I don't know. I have no idea. That's not the argument I'm going to ever try to make. Because there's fucking no way I could ever, think of that. That means Lord of the Rings exists somewhere, and Star Wars exists somewhere, and Grand Theft Auto universe exists somewhere. I guess. I don't know. But my thing is, if what I'm doing feels so very natural, and it feels like this is the only way how to do it, and I look and I think about our spiritual world here, and I think about how we view gods, or just a single God, if you're Abrahamic, how we view spiritual elements like that. And I'm just like, I can't not see this connection here. I can't not see this here. What if our God needs us more than we think he does? It's not just this perfect being who's sitting there smiling and I'll always forgive you, my son, and I'm here for you, and I sent my only son down to talk. What if it's more than that? What if that is it, but it's more than that? What if he's up there fucking, or wherever, I gotta figure this fucking out. We have to do this. In order to do this, to make this world finally go away for the first time, and that I can just truly be. And that world which was there that I made crumbles into nothingness because we solved everything. The prophecy has been fulfilled, and it was absorbed into me, and now I'm whole again. What if that's what this is, Don't know. Am willing to fucking entertain the thought enough to publish books about it. So that's that. We're gonna cut that stream of consciousness. We gotta save it for the fucking... I gotta write some stuff down. Anyway, I'm just trying to unravel more of how this all works, because the way my mind is, I have to know every fucking detail. And so when I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, how was Eris born? And you heard how everything came to be. I'm like, how can I make that work in my story? Eris is literally going to be having a conversation with some people about who the fuck am I? What am I supposed to do here? And they're like, well, what do you think you're supposed to do here? What do you think? What do you fear? Who do you trust? It's God damn it, you guys. And they're going to kind of lay on him. Okay, here's what's really happening. I'm just worried that I might break the book, in a sense. That's my biggest concern. It's just is what I'm about to do here too fucking meta for this story? part of me is like, obviously it's not, jackass, but the other part of me is like, well, I don't know. I think if I do this right, if I fucking do it right, and I don't even know how to tell if I've done it right, but if I stay true to myself, and I trust that everything I'm doing is exactly what it's supposed to be, which is the hardest part, but I'm getting better at it. I just trust what you're writing. There's so many moving elements, and you always want to like go and like zoom in on this one and make sure you're writing correctly, and zoom in on that one and make sure, you know, you always want to like write the story in such a way that you've created vast amount of documents of like how every little system works. But when you get over here and you start writing, it's hard to like, okay, but like I said, exactly this way and that, and this is exactly how the magic works here, and remember how Eris was born, blah, blah, blah. It's hard to like, oh yeah, as you're writing, because you get so into it. That part, I have to trust that I'm staying honest. I've heard a couple things so far from people about like what they think, and I'm like, okay, like maybe I did do it okay. If I do this fucking story right, I think it can be one of the best stories, just right up there when it comes to what it will do. I don't want to sound like an egotistical asshole about it, but if you ask Jacob or if you ask Kevin, they would say the same thing. Weirdly, you'd have to be inside it to realize like, no, this is something. I don't know why. I will not take full credit of that. I think it's because it's a collaborative thing. I think that's probably why it's so good. But there's something about this story that to me seems almost otherworldly. Almost as I'm writing as the author my character's journey, there's a I'm the conduit of some other being writing mine, and it's like this fractal thing, right? I've talked about my world's a fractal nature thing. I've made a video about it, figure that out. But I feel that. Does that make sense? Like I'm sitting here typing around like, oh, you know, this is what he probably is, and this is what the dream realm is, and blah, 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 other world bullshit and gods. And as I'm doing that, I feel like something's just like channeling through me trying to do this. Like what I'm doing with my world, I made it to save myself. Help me, Eris, so that we can dissolve this world and it'll be gone forever, and then we're now in the realm of life again. I feel like there's another being doing that to me. He's like, write this, make this happen, you do these things so I can unravel all this and everything can be back to normal again. It's weird. I can't explain it more than that. Like, I feel as if this is a fractal thing. Because everything connects too well. Everything is too eerie when it comes to like, I have an idea, then Jacob will say something and it's magically, it'll find its way together, even though those ideas were many years apart and we didn't tell each other about it, or we're all on the same page about elements of things. We all understand each other's characters in such a way. This story feels so naturally right to me and the other guys that I'm like, this is like, there's something to this. Something more than any of us will ever know, and I'm just trying to capture on camera this experience of creating all this and what it's led me to be. The person that I was, whatever 2012 was, however many years ago that is, 11, 12 years, I don't know, 13 years, I don't know. That guy's a lot different, and I know we all grow, but this has changed so fucking much about me, for the good and for the bad. I'm just flabbergasted. I think this title should be The Story of Life maybe. I was thinking the story of our lives. I'm like, I don't want to. Might not be too faggy. I'm pretty sure 90% of the people are tuned out by this point. They usually tune out in the first 10 minutes. But the people that stayed, that's cool. I think when you choose that, you chose to come along with this person on their little mind adventure. I think the fact that you just did that means you have a part in it. You always hear what you're supposed to hear. Nothing's ever on accident. Nothing's ever just like, oh, you know, like whatever. Doesn't really matter. That's a modern concept. Don't let it fuck you up. Everything has its purpose. You can call it divine, you can call it destiny, you can call it whatever the fuck you want. Same thing. And the fact that if you stayed along and you're here for this, I think that there's a part to play. I think there's something you need to unravel in that. That's the way I look at my life, you know, when I listen to other people. I'm like, well, I'm here for a reason. They got something they gotta tell me. I think that's probably the key to it all. And my advice would be, write it down. Because you never fucking know what this might do. We need more modern mythology that's not full of bullshit and junk. I think there's more of us out there that can start to unravel what the modern mythology may be. And that's that. We'll cut it from here. Hopefully, it'll be a good writing day, but we shall see.